Hello and welcome to Faith Matters. This is the programme where we take a spiritual perspective on life across the Merseyside region. And I'm here today at St Margaret's Church of England Vicarage with Ryan Cook and Joe Cottrell, who live in the community house here. Welcome. Well, you're welcoming me to your home, but welcome
Keith,
to Faith Matters. Ryan, Joe, just tell us a little bit about yourselves. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourselves as an introduction to our programme today.
Well, I'm Canadian, first of all. Moved here about 3 years ago to be the chaplain to the universities, Liverpool, University of Liverpool and John Moores. So, been here, my wife and kids. I've got 3 kids and 1 wife. And just about 3 years now.
Okay, you enjoying living in Liverpool?
I love Liverpool. Yeah, absolutely.
And Joe, where do you come from? You're not from here either, right?
No. I've lived all over the country really, but my family from Essex, and I moved up to Liverpool 8 years ago now, originally for university, and never really left. But no, I really love Liverpool, and I feel quite at home here now.
Okay, we're here today to talk about this house, about the community house. Jokingly, because I know you guys, I like to call it the hipster church, because normally, Ryan, you've cut your beard. Normally, it's a little more flowing and longer and hipster.
I've lost all my power, actually.
But what is this house? What's going on here?
Right. It is a bit peculiar. It's a bit peculiar to try to describe to friends too why we're all living in this big house together. But essentially, about 5 years ago, as I was reflecting on my own Christian faith and looking for a more robust way of being discipled myself, I started exploring this idea of community. And I didn't know how it would come along, but we thought about 5 years ago that we'd like to live in some sort of community setting with some other folks. And so when this house became available, which has nine bedrooms, it looked like it would be possible for my family and a few others to move into a big house together and to explore our discipleship, I guess, what that looks like, try to live in community and to offer hospitality more broadly in the neighborhood.
And so how many people live here? I mean, there've been people in and out, and as we've been here preparing, how many people are here?
There's 9 of us that live here, so my family of 5, and then 4 others. Yeah.
Okay, and Joe, you're one of those 4 others. How did you come to be here?
Well, I met Ryan shortly after he became the university chaplain through St James's Church, and we got chatting about various things over the time, got to know each other a little bit, and when he started discussing this idea of moving in and living with under these ideas, it sounded something really exciting. I needed somewhere to live, which helped, and once I met the other guys that were going to be involved, it really hit it off, and it really seemed like an exciting and meaningful way of doing stuff. So I jumped at the chance.
And how long have you been living here now?
Year and a half.
Year and a half. Yeah.
Okay, and so what are you trying to achieve here?
Well,
and why are you doing it?
Well, what are we trying to achieve? I mean, initially we didn't have some sort of really honed out plan, and this is exactly what we want to execute. We had two things that we wanted to give ourselves to. One of them was prayer, and the other one was hospitality.
That's prayer.
Prayer.
Yeah.
Prayer.
Yeah.
And prayer and hospitality. So we meet 4 times a week as a community, which other people can come along if they want, to pray, and we offer hospitality as much as we possibly can out of the house. We have people staying here all the time. We do dinner for the community. Anybody who wants to come can come. And we've given ourselves to those 2 things essentially. That was our only plan. We want to find ways of giving ourselves to prayer and hospitality. As far as what we're trying to achieve, I think we're trying to embody our faith a faith that is about radical hospitality at its core. So the message of the gospel is God radically opening himself up to humanity, to love us, to care for us, to bring him in close to himself, and we want to embody that in our day-to-day lives, in Toxteth, in our neighborhood, to our friends, people we don't know. And so this is an attempt to do that. I guess I don't believe that we can control the outcome or what happens, but really we're just supposed to give ourselves to those principles. And so that's generally what we're doing.
Okay, and what's the relationship to St Margaret's Church?
St Margaret's Church has sort of, we're working in sort of an informal, sometimes more formal partnership. They've obviously opened up the space for us to be able to use the house. And Bob Lewis, who's the vicar at the church, joins us in prayer and is part of the, I guess he'd be part of the broader team that helps us think through what we're doing here at the vicarage. So,
and the chaplaincy is based here as well.
Yeah, the university chaplaincy. So Bob Lewis and I are colleagues at the university, and so we're both now based here on the property.
Okay, and so you don't have any kind of end goal at all, though, really?
We have things that we're giving ourselves to, but as far as end goal, I think it remains open, and there's a creative space that's opened up by not trying to narrow it too much. I think we're continually wrestling with what it means to not have a really clearly defined end goal, but just give ourselves to prayer and hospitality. So I don't think we could have imagined some of the things that have already happened from the beginning, and I think that the future is yet to be told as to what that looks like.
And Joe, you're a community worker here in Toxteth as well. Are you relating I know you're fairly new to this role with the Methodist Church.
Yeah.
And are you relating what you're doing to what's happening here? Yeah,
I think it's part of living here means that it's not kind of a job. You know, what I'm doing with the Methodist Church is a job, but I think the way we live here is part of your life, and so it's hard to really not relate what you do here to, and that's, you know, there are some, it's not all good, but there's some really powerful things about that, and so there is a blend between the two, and I think most people who live here who don't necessarily work in full-time or Christian ministry would say the same.
And so you were talking about the various people who stay here. I mean, one of the people who stays here at weekends sometimes is the local rabbi from the. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, once or twice a month, the rabbi from Prince's Road Synagogue stays with us, and that sort of happened because he's only part-time at the synagogue and needed a place that was reasonably priced to stay with his family so that he could perform his duties there. And we opened up the house thinking it would be maybe 2 or 3 weeks that we would provide him a place, and it's been over a year now, and they've become friends of ours.
So his wife will come as well?
Yeah, his wife and their couple of children.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so
there's a kind of interfaith dimension as well happening here.
There is, an interfaith dimension that isn't that is based on what has become actually quite a beautiful friendship between Ariel and his family and us here at the vicarage. Yeah. Okay.
And to the wider community around Toxteth, are they becoming aware there are people living in community here? I mean, how's that working?
I think slowly but surely people are becoming aware that that we have community. We throw parties every 3 months or so, and we've had up to 125 people in our backyard from the surrounding area, all kinds of different people from all kinds of different faith backgrounds and non. And I think slowly, as we just sort of continue to live out our lives here, people are finding out about this peculiar community that's living in the heart of Toxteth. So
yeah. So you just open up the door and the gate and people come in? Is it kind
Yeah,
of,
well,
like that?
We try to invite them. So we've wandered the neighborhoods, knocking on doors. We invite people that we meet just generally to our Monday night dinners and things like that. So we're constantly sort of inviting people in to come hang out, to become our friends, essentially. So it's an ongoing thing.
Okay, after the break, we're going to go to our commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about new monasticism as a movement in general and what we feel about that and how you might relate to it. So join us after the break for Faith Matters. Welcome back to the second part of Faith Matters. We're here in the vicarage at St Margaret's Church in Toxteth with Ryan Cook and Joe Cottrell, and we're talking about living in community. Now, guys, I understand that little bird has told me that you've had some tattoos done, have you, to signify living in this community. Is that true?
Well, you make it sound like a very deliberate process. It was sort of a spontaneous moment one night when we thought it would be really fun to give ourselves tattoos with Indian inks. We each have a tattoo about the size of a pound coin, which sounded really funny at the time and sounded really fun, but the more that I tell people, it sounds terribly peculiar.
Yeah. Okay. But moving on to something more serious. This living in community it's not just something here in Toxteth, this is kind of like a global kind of movement with young millennial kind of Christians across the kind of planet, really, and particularly in the Western world. Do you see yourselves connected to that movement, and what do you think is spurring on this kind of development in the church? What's behind this kind of move?
I probably have to admit that I didn't come at this idea through the lens of new monasticism. I actually came at this idea through the lens of old monasticism, through my engagement and study of the history of the church, and realizing that there could be something really beautiful in more robust expressions of community, not just for the community but for the wider neighborhood. So I don't know if I could say that I'm a poster boy for the new monastic movement, or that we are, but I do think that there is sort of a general sentiment that in lots of people my age, younger, and some a little older, that we need good, robust expressions of our faith that cause our faith to hit the ground. And I also think that there's something in this way of living that speaks to that becomes subversive in a Western consumer capitalist society, which isn't all bad. I mean, we've been given great gifts, by this way of being, but I think it's a way of curbing excess. It's a way of leaning into the other. It's a way of overcoming individualism, sometimes by just the sheer frustration of being in other people's space. It's a way of more robustly embodying what it means to be a disciple of Jesus and loving other people. And so how we connect with the new monasticism movement, I'm not exactly sure. Okay. But I think there are some similar ethos things going on in the air with lots of us.
And also, I think people can't afford. I mean, there's a lot that we're hearing now in the media about young people not being able to afford, accommodation, rented accommodation, let alone, mortgages. Rented, people are being priced out. Maybe not here in Liverpool, but in certain other parts of the country. So there's a kind of practicality actually about coming together. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, maybe Joe has something to say about that.
I mean, have you found it difficult to find affordable?
Yeah, I think even up in places like Liverpool, it's harder and harder to make ends meet. If you're not in a well-paid job, and so I think there's a lot to be said about the benefits of living with other people. It's something that we're not really told to think about in this culture. We're told to think about the individual and your own, doing it for yourself and building your own little empire. And I think it's becoming unpractical, but I also think it's important that there's negative to that goes without even saying it's impractical. I don't think that's a good way of living your life. And I think what we're trying to do here is certainly experiment maybe. Explore.
It's a big social experiment.
Probably explore is a better word. Explore how we can live together in different ways, and I don't think we intentionally we're doing this in a kind of a new monastic way, but certainly there's a lot of similarities.
I mean, going back to the old monastic way, I mean, it could be the case, it probably was the case that they were experimenting as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
particularly the early pioneers of monasticism, going back centuries, they also were experimenting. Now, Joe, I know because I know you reasonably well that you've got a Christian background,
mm-hmm.
church background. Your father's a church leader, and you grew up visiting the Franciscan friary. Did you not go on summer camps?
Yeah.
Any of that kind of informed this, or does it inform your living together?
It does a lot more than I initially realised. I spent the Franciscans were a big part of my life, really, on and off through the years, and they've been a constant, and I've got a lot of time for the way they try to live and the goals they set. And part of living here, I've kind of, it's reminded me oddly of a lot of times with that, and about their rituals of prayer and hospitality. And I think when we started using those words, we weren't aware kind of clearly of their heavy monastic use, but I think that is, it is very, very strong theme of that, and engaging with those sorts of orders and how the wisdom that they have built over the years is important for the church not to ignore that.
I mean, some people have talked about this as this kind of thing as an ancient future kind of approach.
Mm-hmm.
So it's taking from the ancient church and reinterpreting it, or bringing it into the now in order to create something for the future. Do you think along with that?
I definitely resonate with the whole idea of the ancient future, because I think there is a sense just generally in people my age that we're looking for something rooted, something deeper, and this whole experience of living in community and trying to offer hospitality to the neighborhood is for me, it's a deeper embodiment of faith, and something that we do see in the monastic movement, sort of a robust expression of community that forces you to become more like Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, a week or so ago, we had Bishop Paul on the programme, and I talked to him about his vision for the poor man's table. He wants to lay out, or he's unpacked a vision of laying out a table in every street in the diocese, which he calls the poor man's table, because Jesus is the poor man. Now you have a table. We're deliberately sat around your table because you've said to me before that this table is the centre, really, of what you're attempting to do here. Can you unpack that a bit for us? These meals you have, the community meals. I mean, I've been here to eat it. It's been Joe's cooked. It's been wonderful. And tell us a bit.
Depending on who's cooking, that's how we determine how divine the experience was.
It was fairly divine when I came.
Okay. I mean, I guess for me, there's an intimate connection between the tables that we eat at and the table of the Lord, or the Eucharistic table. What I mean by that is in the Eucharistic table, we are welcomed by Jesus. He's the host, and we're the guests. And when we come as the guests, we don't come with all of our titles and all of our accolades from society. We come as brothers and sisters, and we look each other in the eyes. The table is the great leveler, and I think I think that there's one thing that's deeply embedded into the practice of the Christian church for thousands of years. It's eating together, and that makes so much sense to me. I mean, around this table we've had rich and poor, young and old, and we don't sit down at this table and make judgments about each other. We don't sit down at this table seeking to gain power over one another. We sit down at this table as friends, opening up our lives to try to know the other and to embrace the other. And some of my deepest experiences of the spiritual experiences of the last couple of years, I ramble on and on about this, maybe too much to the people that know me, but some of my deepest spiritual experiences have happened around this table as I've encountered other people. But I think it's just an extension. It's an extension of that Eucharistic table, that invitation, that hospitable invitation given to us by Jesus to come to Himself. Sometimes I feel like, well, this is our dinner table. It is sort of a Eucharistic table, and the invitation that we send out for people to come be with us and to eat a meal and get to know each other is an invitation to come and know Jesus in a peculiar sort of way.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for joining us today on Faith Matters, and for welcoming us around your table. And we hope to see you again soon. Join us again for Faith Matters next time.